would like to invite Alison and Chandrika to take over.
Thank you, Dr. Karthik. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. This summer, Alison, Raj, and myself, we worked on the Center for Children's Right project. In the next 10 minutes or so, let's understand the wicked problem CCR is working on and how we all can help. Next slide, please. We all face many different challenges at an early age, but for most of us, the school to graduation journey is a pretty straight line. This isn't true for many kids for whom the journey is either delayed or cut short because of barriers like suspensions, failed grades, expulsions, and even arrests. So data related to juvenile arrests suggests that there is a disproportionate tendency of minors and young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds to become incarcerated more often. This whole thing where the children are funneled out of the schools into the juvenile and the criminal justice system is called the school-to-prison pipeline. Fortunately, there are few organizations that are working towards breaking this pipeline and getting these kids back to school. CCR is one of them. And in the next slide, we will see how referrals to law enforcement can disproportionately affect minorities. So both United States and the Duval County data reveal that the student population of the African American is lesser than that of the white students, but the Black students are more often referred to the law enforcement. For the whole of the US, the difference is around 16%, and for the Duval County, it's around 22%. In the next two slides, let's try to understand why it is important to address the problem of STPP. So few alarming statistics show that the chances of recidivism for youths that have been detained are way higher than for the kids that went through alternative programs. We can also see that the rate of violent crimes is way higher for kids that have been incarcerated. Next slide, please. So the school-to-prison pipeline has a profound negative impact on the young people's mind, their physical well-being, their mental well-being, their current education, their future employment prospects. Since it disproportionately affects the young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds, it has the potential to lead to a vicious cycle that is difficult to break, which in turn impacts the society socially and economically. First, let's reflect on the social impact. So nobody is born an offender, but their background can make them more likely to be one. So school-to-prison pipeline in many cases represent this continuity of a cycle which can stay in some families for generations. There is also a cost associated with this problem. So in US, on an average, it costs around $588 per day to keep the juveniles in a secure confinement. Alison.
Thank you, Chandrika. Now that we know more about the wicked problem and its context, let's talk about CCR and how they are facing the issues. We would say that CCR is an organization that provides free legal representation to kids that are being referred directly from the juvenile justice system. But in fact, they do way more than that. As the problem is complex and involves lots of different dimensions, CCR team works with a more holistic approach. So in addition to the advocacy, the free advocacy, they also provide other services and resources to the kids that in which are in need. So in the next slide, we will see a list of some examples of services and resources that CCR provide to the kids. So we can see that they provide educational advocacy, especially advocacy for kids that has disability, especially helping them to break the barriers to access special programs such as ESE, EIP, and other mental health services as well. And also helping kids and families to access public benefits, health programs, helping them with transportation, family services, and even housing and utilities. Next slide, please. CCR is a young organization. They are only 2 years old, but they are doing really great in terms of data collection. They have been collecting data from different stages of their relationship with the kids and the families. So they have a relationship from the moment that the kids are referred to them until the case closure. And they shared 6 different data sets with us that has data on more than 160 kids. This is not a big number in terms of observation, but those data sets were really rich in terms of features. We worked with more than 200 different features, and in which we had data containing information about kids' education, behavior, services that they need, resources that they need, and services that CCR provided to them. And in addition to this internal data, we also work with external data sources, such as the civil rights data collection and other academic papers and reports. So in the next slide, we'll see some approaches that we used to extract insights from this data. So we use from simple descriptive statistics until regression models, clustering, NLP, and quantitative analysis to analyze these data sets. And this last approach, especially we had to use because we had access to a very rich data piece of information that about the kids' history that was in text format. So we had to add some human intelligence to the machine intelligence to extract meaningful information from this data. And in the next slide, we will see some examples of the insights that we learned from the data and from this analysis that we did. The first one is that CCR business, timing is crucial. And before we dig into the data, I will explain a little bit of the process. So CCR starts to work with a referral. And after this referral, they get in touch with the family or the caretakers, and they introduce themselves and try to convince them to start a project to help the kids. But in some cases, they're not able to get in touch with the family or the caretaker. And in other cases, even though they are able to contact them, the family is not interested in initiating a project, a relationship. So what we did was match the data we had, in which we had all the kids that were referred to CCR, and all the data regarding the kids that were accepted to CCR, and we calculated a success rate. And what we learned was, for the kids that are enrolled in school, the success rate is around 50%. And for kids that are not enrolled in school, even because they dropped or they got expelled from school, this success rate drops to 18%. So it seems like the sooner the CCR gets involved with the kids and the family, higher the chances that they engage with themselves. In the next slide, we will see some information regarding the demographics of these kids and families. So we can see, for instance, that the majority of the kids are coming from neighborhoods in which the household income is way below the average of Duval County. So almost 60% of the kids are coming from households in which the income is between $24,000 and $47,000 per year. Also, we can see that the majority of the kids are coming from schools in which the grades are below C. And also we can notice that a significant portion of the kids are also coming from, they are not enrolled in any schools, or they're being homeschooled. Like 15% of those kids are not enrolled in any schools or are being homeschooled as well. In the next slide, we will see some examples of analysis that we did regarding the school's resources. And here we have plotted only schools that have reported some referrals to law enforcement. In the y-axis, we have the referrals to law enforcement per 1,000 students. And in the x-axis, we have the proportion of teachers in their first years of teaching. So we can see that it seems to have a relationship between the schools that have reported more kids to law enforcement and the fact and the proportion of kids, the portion of teachers that are unexperienced. And we also see that this This pattern repeated for other variables that we also analyze, such as the number of non-certified teachers, the absenteeism of teachers, and even the growth of the number of teachers over time. So it seems like that sometimes the kids with the most needs are being matched with the schools with the least resources. And now we can see here, if we go further and highlight in red, each dot here in this graph is a school. So if we highlight in red the schools that referred at least one kid to CCR, we can see that CCR is reaching the schools that has the highest engagement with the law enforcement. So it is interesting to see how good they're doing in terms of reach in only 2 years of work. So these were some examples that of insights that we got from the quantitative analysis. And now Chandrika will show us some insights that we got also from the qualitative analysis, especially regarding information regarding the kids themselves.
Thank you, Alison. So once we're done with the quantitative analysis, we moved on to the qualitative analysis. So since CCR had lots of data in the text format, this helped us to understand the clients better. And here are some important statistics which we could find. 65% of the kids referred to CCR suffered from anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar disorder, PTSD, among many other mental health concerns. At least 45% of these kids were either undergoing psychological evaluation or counseling, or they seemed to need one. In terms of education, 60% of the kids failed at least one grade, and 44% of them were frequently suspended. So irony is, given their mental health concerns, learning issues, and their grades, IEP or 5-4 was still a concern for 59% of these kids. So either the kid needed an IEP and didn't have one, or the parents were not involved in the IEP plan, or they had an IEP or 5-4 but were not making academic progress. Concerning these youths' family background, 65% of them came from complex family dynamics. And when we say complex family dynamics, it would mean the situation in the kid's family is not same as what we would see in any normal household. It might involve severe domestic violence, foster care, adoption, parental issues, killings in the family, and other trauma. More than 30% of such kids worried about not having enough food or even needed help with rent. And around 26% of these kids were dealing with substance or drug abuse. Now, CCR pays special attention to barriers specific to each kid and tries to provide holistic solutions. Next slide, please. So every kid CCR has worked with is a success story in itself. CCR is already off to an excellent start. Congratulations to the team on that. But we have few recommendations based on our analysis to CCR to enhance their journey. So first would be the improvement to the data collection strategy. So while doing qualitative analysis, we figured out an encoding system using which the text data which CCR was collecting can be segregated into categories with a simple yes/no kind of answers. This will help CCR when they will have lots of data to analyze in the future. This followed by an exit survey of the clients post-case closure will be an excellent way to quantify their success. Few questions like how CCR changed their mental and physical health, their family relations, their grades can be asked. We understand that CCR has good relationship with all the schools they have been working with, but putting more effort into schools where they get most referrals from will help them in several ways. They could work with those schools and other organizations to come up with some preventive measures so that the kids don't land up in the juvenile justice system in the first place. The next three recommendations are specifically for the complex cases CCR works with. So from the qualitative analysis we did, we could see referrals coming from complex family dynamics more often didn't register with CCR after the first meeting. Since the current team's hands are full, a dedicated staff attorney who could pursue such cases will be of immense help. Similarly, a resilience navigator, as Betsy quoted, who is a part social worker, part community builder, will be equally important to help such kids with resources. And finally, direct referrals from the court system will help them navigate through such cases quickly and efficiently. Thank you. Alison?
At last, we would like to share a beautiful piece of information we found in CCR's datasets. And they collect data regarding kids' talents, what the kids reported to be their talents and their interests. And we plotted a few examples here. And as the kids can report more than one talent, these numbers can sum up to way more than 100%. And the thing is, when we dig into the data, when we do all the analysis, we tend to treat them as the numbers, and we forget that they are kids, right? And when we see this kind of statistics, it kind of reconnects us with the fact that they're kids. They have hope, they have dreams, they have talents. And what CCR is doing is not only keeping those kids in school until they graduate, they're also helping those kids to explore their actual talents, to build other talents, and to make a good impact in society in the future. So this is the final insight we would like to share with you. We would like to thank Betsy and CCR team. We would also like to thank Professor Umapati and Professor Richard and all the mentors for sharing their time and their knowledge with us. And now we will switch gears